Welcome to Monsters and Multiclass, your Dungeons & Dragons fix. I'm Ellioti.
I'm Jared Bornagle.
And I'm Wim Elder.
And we'll be hanging out with you for a while to talk about anything and everything D&D related. And on this episode, we enter a new era as we retire the multiclass discussions and keep the namesake because we're not going to change it. And we're probably going to also go back to multiclasses at some point to rehash old ones and as new things get released. But it's a new era, and we are starting a new series, the Class Critiques, the Class Retrospectives. And we're beginning this with the Ranger. Also, we kind of did it with the Sorcerer a while ago with a guest. This is a really bad intro.
We've had worse. Yeah. We've had worse.
Yeah.
It's good people.
The information got out there.
Right. And it's important that people know what to expect for the next hour plus. It's not going to be well edited, tight delivery. It's going to be real. It's going to be raw. So the way that we are formatting this is we're going to talk about just what is the Ranger and what is the class? What does it mean to people? What if people liked about it? What if people disliked about it? And also going through the player's handbook, Ranger, going through Xanathar's, Tasha's, and then finishing it off with what we would like to see out of the Ranger, most likely in 5.5 or whatever the next edition is, or just in our hearts. Because
just some mythical perfect world where we just get what we want.
Right. Yeah. without ever without ever putting pen to paper, just snap our fingers.
Because we're all that matters.
Yeah. So let's start
to put that in a more digestible way. Ideas that we think would benefit the Ranger.
Yes.
Because it has not always been well received.
I feel like that was already said. Anyways, let's go and start with what is the Ranger? So it's definitely a difficult question that I think different editions have had different takes on. And the core of it really started from Aragorn in Lord of the Rings and the Rangers in there. But beyond that and initial inspiration, I'll I guess ask you guys, what is a Ranger to you? Let's start with Ellie.
Sure. So in 5th edition here, I think the Ranger is probably the weakest in terms of class identity. It started strong in the player handbook, but it was something nobody liked, and we could cover all that. And so then they basically threw it out with each following subclass that doesn't really fit what it originally was. Because if you go back to just the player handbook Ranger, nothing else to it, the Ranger are the people who protect the fringes of society from the wilderness and chaos and the monsters that exist there. They're the outdoorsy gurus, the guides. They specialize in hunting certain things in certain terrain, and that is the Ranger. And it was showcased between two subclasses of the Hunter and the Beastmaster, which are just two different ways to go about that. Kind of two different ways of how they handle the actual protection part of slaying foes and killing things and stuff like that. One has an animal companion that they fight with. The other one specializes in hunting like giants or hordes or fighting them and stuff like that. But then in the very next book, Xanathar's, all that's thrown out. It just doesn't fit anymore, and it's just gotten even further from it.
All right. Will, what is a Ranger to you?
I concur mostly with that, but I think one of the things that's kind of overlooked and was a big faceplant that they tried to do and just didn't get it through is the expertise aspect of it. A Ranger is not the best fighter, but the goal is to make someone who knows enemies, knows terrain, knows how to kill things. And this is a really popular archetype. And it's really well portrayed in, I think, the Witcher games and the Witcher series as this is an expert in killing things, Right. They study this stuff. They know it like the back of their hand. It just doesn't come through with anything they've done. And I think if you leaned into that would be the best path to take it.
Yeah, and one of the things just to add on to that is I think it's important to bring up the focus of nature. I mean, because it's not just that they know how to hunt monsters, because an artificer could hunt monsters well, but it's the fact that they utilize nature and their surroundings in order to hunt creatures. And I think that's really the big thing that separated them, even going back further in earlier editions, where in, I think, his first edition, they basically were like a fighter subclass kind of is what the ranger became, and then they eventually got druid spells, and it felt very intertwined with the natural aspect of things. So I've summarized it in my way into a single sentence: warriors who live on the edge of civilization and use their knowledge of nature to hunt those who threaten the civilized world. That is, like, to me, what encompasses a ranger. And I think, Will, you hit it nail on the head with the Witcher comparisons. I feel like that is, a lot of times people try to make a Witcher class, but the more that I've looked at the ranger and thought about it way too much over the past week here, it's like, no, that's what a Witcher was. A Witcher is a very good example of a ranger done correctly.
For sure. And then especially the Monster Slayer subclass that's in there.
Geralt of Rivia is a ranger artificer multiclass with the potions.
Yeah, but if
that's going to be the most disappointing play you'll ever make, but there you go.
We'll put it into the big book of multiclassing. Okay, so then, what do people like about the ranger? And this can be in concept too. It doesn't have to just be in 5th edition. Yeah.
Well, in concept, it's a cool concept.
Right.
It just, as Will said, it's well received. It's a popular one about that they're skillful at hunting and killing things and protecting, and it's what they do. I just think it falls flat. Are you talking here like mechanical specifics or just like the concept of a ranger?
It can be all. I mean, why? I guess I could even ask why people like that hunter idea. Why isn't this accomplished with just a fighter? That's a big question, isn't it?
It is, yeah. Because again, that's where it comes back to where I think it's a weak class identity.
Mm-hmm.
Because like you could absolutely be like a monster slayer who protects society from the monsters and the wilds and be in a 100% urban environment.
Right.
And like natural explorer and the nature spells make zero sense, but you have them anyways.
Yeah, and I guess a big part of it is that magical idea as well, though. Which can give them class identity. I think what makes people like them in comparison to fighters, where fighters are just a pure martial, no frills. Even adding a subclass similar to like the Eldritch Knight, but with a nature focus, probably wouldn't have completely grasped what people are enjoying about it. Is they want to feel like the magical aspect of their fighting and hunting is truly ingrained in the character and the concept.
Right.
And also people like nature.
Like, we were talking about fighters and you mentioned Eldritch Knight. I think another thing that people might instinctively kind of grasp for is I want to be the magic archer. And the ranger, and before Arcane Archer came out, was the obvious choice for like a magic archer. And I
even
also
with
don't
Arcane
think that
Archer
really comes through. And now, Arcane Archer, our biggest complaint is you're not doing a whole lot of arcane arching.
Yeah, but though if you just want to be like the best archer, fighter is better for it.
Correct. But
being a ranger.
You would not be a magical one.
You would what? Not magical.
You
could be an Eldritch Knight. Eldritch Knight could be an archer. And that was a player handbook release.
You get spells and archery. Yeah. You don't get archery spells.
Yeah, I guess Ranger gets a couple archery spells that aren't very great. And that's until you get Swift Quiver at like 17th level.
Where all of the best Ranger features come online.
Which gets back into the why these half casters just fall flat. It's like 17th level for your cool stuff is just so much.
Mm-hmm. Well, why don't people complain about Paladin though? And I think
Paladin is so incredibly strong at the core.
And this is going to be a good, I think, transition to what do people not like. And that's, in my eyes, it's at the base class of the Ranger. Not the subclasses are truly, it's just lacking in anything that makes you go, wow, that is going to be a fun character to play, and I'm going to find use for those abilities. I mean, looking at... even just like the later level stuff. I mean, I know that they've reworked a lot with Tasha's, but a lot of these where you're like able to hide in a tree for 10 hours or whatever length of time. And it's really basic stuff that can be accomplished in a million other ways. It's not really showing me anything cool about the Ranger. And just looking at how it's been treated in 5th edition, there's nothing in the base class. There's just nothing there.
No. Yeah. So let's take a look. Yeah, the player handbook Ranger. Just the basic one. What you get at first level is favorite enemy and natural explorer. And often those like first level features you get kind of inform you a lot about how the class is intended to be played and the role you're supposed to fill. And both of those deal with the exploration pillar of, and so there's that the concept within D&D of the design philosophy of you have 3 core pillars: combat, social interactions, and exploration. And exploration is absolutely the neglected, crumbling pillar. It's I don't find it fun to engage with, and based on community stuff, I think most people feel that way too. Obviously, I'm sure there's exceptions, and if you love the exploration pillar, have at it. But it's a very passive pillar. It's like, all right, we're going exploring, we're like traveling the lands, and up front you said, all right, you two watch for danger, and you track where we're going to see if we don't get lost, and you guys forage for food. And then the DM describes some things, and they tell you when to roll some dice to see if you got lost. And if you got lost, all it results in is more dice rolls to get back on. And then, like, did you find enough food? You found enough food, great. And even if you have, like, the best DM in the world with these ridiculous, beautiful prose of the vistas you're seeing and how the land changes and all of that, it's still passive. You sit there and you listen to this and roll when they tell you to roll.
To be fair,
and then maybe you'll have a combat, but now that's combat pillars.
Right. But what you're describing to me isn't truly what I'd call the exploration pillar. It's like, it'd be in the same vein of having just random encounters. Random encounters to me aren't particularly fun because all you're doing is rolling dice. The idea of the exploration pillar and what it should be, and maybe this isn't the conversation for it, but to me it's more about exploring and finding things. It should have intrigue to it, where yes, you get lost, and when you get lost, story thing happens. Or even if you are on your path, you see a cave off in the distance, and it's the DM kind of saying, hey, there's something over there. Do you want to explore it? And to me, that's what the exploration pillar is, more so than the rule set of whether or not you get lost in the woods or if you're foraging for food. Those are part of it, but that's like the nitty-gritty aspect.
I'm gonna have to disagree. So you're going through the woods, you say, oh, there's a cave over there, would you like to explore it? If they say yes, to me, that ends the exploration pillar. You're no longer engaging with that. You are now dungeon delving. You're doing combat.
Dungeon delving is the exploration pillar.
You think?
Yeah, because if you are not, because the other ones are in combat, so fighting.
No, the combat counts. I see combat as in combat and then dealing with like traps and stuff like that, things that suck up resources.
This might be arguing semantics then, because to me that's still exploration, because usually it's with the goal of getting things. You know, you are exploring this extra hallway in a dungeon so that you can get treasure or you can get lore or you can get something out of it, and I wouldn't call that combat.
I wouldn't really call it exploring either. It's just like, yeah, let me go and see what's down that hallway.
That's literally what exploring is.
Ranger exploring. That's just, maybe that's not part of the pillar. That's just one of the pillars.
We might not get
either
an answer
way,
to this.
A ranger doesn't help with those aspects.
Sure.
A ranger's not like a dungeon delver, or maybe some of the subclasses help with it, but the core ranger doesn't do stuff like help with delving dungeons and finding traps and picking locks. And it's
correct.
Like, you could pick skills and stuff like that, but it's no different than any other class.
100% correct.
What they help with is the wilderness exploration, traveling through the wilderness, trying to not get lost, trying to track things, and which is generally considered the weakest part of the game.
Right, because even beyond whether or not it is going to be passive as an activity in the first place, for a lot of it still just shuts it down, and it makes it so you're no longer doing those, and it takes all the bookkeeping and says, what if we didn't have to deal with that?
Exactly. Yep, having the ranger in it, so you deal with that aspect, the major part of that pillar, maybe not the whole pillar, whatever. We're not going to solve that now. And it just removes it. But like the fighter obviously engages strongly with the combat pillar, and it's like you get extra attacks, you get feats, you get a bunch of ability score improvements, you get action search to go twice in a turn. That's all stuff that's like, it's active, it's engaging, it's fun. Where the ranger, it's like, all right, I like the exploration pillar. I like that idea. Let me pick a ranger. It's like, oh, okay, we just get to skip 3/4 of it.
Right. Right. I mean, looking at natural explorers, you get difficult terrain doesn't slow down your group's travel. Okay, so we're taking away that complication. Your group can't become lost except by magical means. Okay, another complication gone. And then even when you're engaged in another activity while traveling, you remain alert to danger. Okay, no surprises. We're taking that out. Mm-hmm. I mean, it just keeps going. The idea is that you are getting rid of these things in your favored terrain as long as it comes up. And if it doesn't come up, then you provide literally nothing.
Exactly. Yep, and that's
you know
the
what
other
this reads
terrible
like? This reads like an item.
Yeah.
You're basically an item. It's like, oh, yeah. Now that complication's gone. There's zero agency there. This is like NPC tier stuff.
Right.
Like you'd hire someone
Yes.
for, like, level 1
of
rangers
holding.
probably have tons of job offers, just not for particularly interesting jobs.
Right. It's like in Out of the Abyss. We did initially run that by the book rules of exploration and foraging for food and tracking encumbrance and all of that. And then we kind of got bored of it. And so then like I gave you a bag of holding, and that negated a lot of the issues because now you don't have to worry about encumbrance. And then you could stock up on a whole bunch of food before leaving town. And you were good to go. It's like, yeah, this accomplishes, the ranger accomplishes in a group what a bag of holding does. Assuming it's in the correct terrain, well, a bag of holding works literally anywhere.
Yeah. So, and then, you get to the other side of thing, the favored enemy, which has the same kind of level of flaws, at least in that if you aren't engaging in the thing that you are supposed to be good at, then you're not getting anything. That'd be like saying a paladin can only smite demons, or I guess a fighter can only use its fighting style against, I don't know, orcs, whatever.
A favorite enemy.
Yeah, favorite enemy. It's the same thing.
It only gets its third attack when it's fighting orcs.
Right.
Or whatever.
So
yeah.
when you look at all of the other classes in 5th edition, they all have these very defining features right out the gate from first, maybe second level. And then when we put Ranger here, I mean, it's just, it's nothing.
Yeah. And let's say even you are in a campaign where you're like exclusively fighting elementals, and that's what you pick. And so it's like, this is always online. All you are slightly better at tracking them than the average tracker. You just get advantage, not even like auto succeed. So
right.
It's like, and you learn one of the languages. So I guess primordial, which you could also just like pick that language when you create a character, because almost every character gets more than one language at creation.
Right. And that's generally going to be part of your backstory. So why would you not already know it?
Yep. And so, yeah, there's that flavor where we're talking about, like, these are skilled warriors practicing hunting certain things. Like, this kingdom's always attacked by goblins, and so I'm like this master goblin killer. And so I got Horde Breaker, and goblinoids are my favorite enemy, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it's like, you're not actually better at fighting them.
Arguably worse in some cases. Yeah. I mean, Horde Breaker's nice, but I would much rather like 80% of what a wizard is going to get. They're probably going to be better at fighting goblins.
Yes. So right away we have big problems with the class.
Yeah. And as we go further in with the player's handbook, I think there's a really big focus on I guess the thing that's least interesting about Ranger. Even when we get away from this idea of them destroying the exploration pillar, when we start to see things like the 10th, 14th, and 18th level abilities, they're all very defensive abilities. And they're also situationally defensive, which is an absolutely terrible way to center a class. Hide in plain sight, for example, is the one where if you spend a minute creating camouflage for yourself, then you can get a +10 bonus to dexterity stealth checks, as long as you remain there without moving or taking actions. And then once you move at all, if you sneeze on accident, you have to spend another minute to camouflage yourself. So we've got a +10 ability at level 10. I mean, this is times when fighters are getting their third attack. Paladins are getting their divine smite at 11th. I mean, it's a level away, but it's around this point. And hide in plain sight.
5th level spells start coming online.
Yeah.
Casters. Yeah.
Hide in plain sight is accomplished by Pass Without a Trace, a 2nd level spell that Rangers get.
Yep. And Pass Without Trace helps the entire party. And you can move.
And
you can even fight with it on.
So we have
right? I don't think that ends if you hit anything.
No, I don't. I think it's concentration, though, so that can be
Right.
difficult to justify.
Sure, but...
So,
And then this 14th level ability related to Advanish, you could hide as a bonus action. It's literally a rogue 2nd level feature.
right. So, and they're both, again, just very defensive feeling. And with Hide in Plain Sight, it's super situational. I mean, it's only going to come up if you're trying to lay an ambush, and you can't even help out the rest of your party. So you're going to be really good at stealthing, and I guess the fighter's going to go to the tavern and have a drink while you set up this ambush. And then Vanish, same deal. It's you have a lot of uses for your bonus action. It might be useful to get advantage on an attack and not have as many things hit you, because that's really what hiding does. But we're talking about
it's a lot better
second
for
level.
the rogue, because if they hide and get advantage, then they get sneak attack.
Right.
You don't. You got nothing like that as a ranger. Not you personally, Jared.
I don't, though. It's true.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah.
I
don't know how to
do. We won't go into it, but I do.
And so then at 18th level, we get into the realm of the Will Meldon Bitterness Bounce, because the features are so extremely useless, and you've already got 5th level spells with Ranger, that it's truly better to multiclass into just about anything you can than to take the final 3 levels here. Feral Senses is you can see invisible creatures, and you can know where invisible creatures are, and you don't have a disadvantage on your attack rolls. And you're aware of its location as long as it's within 30 feet of you, it isn't hidden from you, and you aren't blinded or deafened. So at 18th level, when wizards are getting 9th level spells...
Wish.
Meteor
Storm. Time stop. Yeah.
You're able to see invisibility. I mean, that's
within
like
30 feet of you.
Yeah.
Not even see it. And that's a key caveat, because any spell where it's like target a creature you could see, this doesn't even help with that.
Right. So, I mean, if this was like a feature for, I don't know, like you're really adept at... I'm trying to think of like a creature that's normally invisible. But
Ghosts?
I guess ghosts, sure, yeah. If you're like a ghost hunter, then you're like, oh yeah, cool. Ghosts are never going to be as invisible as they used to be, but still I can't see them, so...
Are Dungeons and Dragons ghosts actually invisible at any point?
I think
in
they
time?
can be, but I don't know.
Poltergeists definitely are.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
They're called, yeah.
Yes, poltergeists are. I remember a particular encounter with an invisible poltergeist.
Those are always memorable encounters.
I broke at that. I mean, that was not raw.
We won't
that was more like an event than a combat encounter.
We won't get into it. Mm-hmm. So either way, this is an 18th level ability, and it still does not feel like we've added any oomph to the Ranger. It just feels like it's kind of swinging in the dark.
Yep. Yeah, Feral Senses would, even if they got this at 5th, it would be like, oh, I guess that's okay.
Nice ribbon ability.
For when it comes up. Yet another one for the Ranger, when it comes up.
Mm-hmm. And then the capstone. If you are a longtime listener, you are aware of how much we hate this capstone. It's not new. But if this is your first time, welcome. And this is the Foe Slayer ability, the 20th level ability, where paladins get wings and they're able to fly around smiting. The Ranger is able to, once per turn, if they are fighting one of their favored enemies, which they can have 3 at this point, big pool to choose from, they can add their wisdom modifier to the attack roll or the damage roll before they even know the result of the roll.
Before or after the roll.
Okay, before or after, but still, they don't know the result. It's before any effects of the roll are applied. So...
Right.
At most, we're talking +5 to a roll or +5 to your damage if you are fighting your favorite enemy, which the last one you got was at level 14. An entire campaign ago at that point.
Yes, and this is once a turn.
Oh,
Which is the most insane part about this.
Yeah.
That's just bonkers.
Yes.
I mean, at this point, a fighter has, what, their 4th attack, right? I think that's when they get...
Yeah, I think 17th. Oh, it's 20th, you're right. That's the capstone. They get the 4th attack.
Right. And
Druids get infinite wild shapes.
yeah. I mean...
There are other crappy capstones. They're not all balanced, but I say this is the worst by a long shot.
Right. And again, even just going from 19th to 20th for the Ranger, this is quite literally all that they get besides another hit die.
Yes.
There's no learned spells. There's no... There's no spell slots gained at that point. It's nothing.
Yep, it's terrible.
And I think the worst, most insulting part about it is how boring it is, mechanically and thematically. There's nothing interesting.
Right.
It's just dumb.
It's the type of thing that legitimately should have been added to the level 1 ability.
Yeah.
Where if that was out
Favorite
the gate,
enemy,
just
yeah.
like a blanket thing that you got with your favorite enemy, it was like, oh, and by the way, when you're fighting your favorite enemy, you can add your wisdom modifier. It's like, oh, cool, I'm better at fighting them. Sweet. I can totally deal with that as a first level ability.
And even then, we would still be saying when it comes up. It's campaign dependent.
Right.
You know, like we just finished like a 2.5 year campaign, and if any of us were like a ranger, I don't know what I could have picked. We fought so many different enemy types.
Right.
It would have been so inconsistent.
There's been beasts and orcs and humans and everything in between. Waste of time. And
I guess you could pick 2 humanoids, so you could put like humans and orcs, and then for another one, goblins and whatever. But even still, that starts to fall off. Like if you pick goblins and orcs, it's like there's not a lot of high level goblins and orcs. And playing a long-term campaign.
Right. And like if you're at like level 14, do you really care about having goblinoids anymore? Or do you really even care about having, I don't know, beasts? You're not fighting beasts at level 14. So now you just have a wasted one with no way of swapping it out, because that doesn't even make thematic sense.
Right. Well, that could. They can make a lot of thematic sense. You become rusty at it. Like you haven't fought a goblin in ages, and it's like, yeah, that's no longer a favorite enemy. I'm no longer focused on it. But man, we have been fighting a lot of demons, so I've kind of picked up their tricks. And so I picked up their tricks of how they move through their wilderness, so I could track them better.
Sure.
Yeah.
And something else that we didn't even discuss so far is the spellcasting. So that is, as I was saying, I think that's a core part of the Ranger, is the fact that they are spellcasters. Half-casters, it's important. I mean, even if they're not going to be casting a spell every time, it clearly separates them as a class from fighters. Their spell list separates them from paladins, clerics. I mean, it should add some uniqueness. And when I think of a Ranger, I think of somebody who is ready for any obstacle. And when I think of that, I think of a preparation caster. But instead, Rangers have to learn their spells.
Yep.
And they're stuck with them.
Yep. Well, I think they could swap them out on level up, right?
Sure, yes. I think they can.
Like all spellcasters. Yeah, when you gain a level, you could choose to replace one. So that's okay, I guess. But it's still, and 100% thematically and balance-wise, too, they should be preparation casters.
Right.
Like, there's nothing that crazy on the Ranger list where if they got access to all of that. And, like, you have the tax of always taking Hunter's Mark anyways.
Right.
And that's what the majority of your concentration is going to be. Except for maybe out of combat. Utility. Maybe Zephyr's Strike if you're playing a melee Ranger.
So then, we get to the end of the class here, and, again, I think the big thing that jumps out at me is just the base class seems very focused on being prepared for very, very specific things and not allowing you to actually be prepared for whatever is to come.
Yes.
I'm sure there's a campaign where all of these things could be
Yes.
utilized, though.
Yeah, absolutely. You'd have to build around it, but yes. So we are obviously not a big fan of the Player Handbook Ranger. To be fair, the Hunter subclass, though, which is the Player Handbook subclass, I think is actually really solid. It doesn't overcome the base class issues, but the subclass itself is really good. I think that's kind of one that got grouped in with everything else about the Ranger being so bad. It kind of... Though more recently, people, I think, have recognized it. But this one's really great because on every feature you get to pick between one of three things, so you can really further customize your ranger. And for the most part, all the picks are really solid. Starting with an offensive one, then a defensive one, and then a way to hit more than one target.
Yeah, and I mean, I'll agree. I mean, I think the options are heavily skewed in like towards one being the optimal choice, which isn't great. Like Colossus Slayer, for example, is just obviously good. Being able to add a D8 of damage if a creature's below its max HP. I mean, that's just about every turn you're going to get that off. Whereas something like Horde Breaker, it doesn't come up all the time, but fine, it's all right. So I mean, you're adding these additional fighting styles more or less, and yeah, it does make them more unique, and I think it addresses what is needed in the Ranger, which is how they actually fight and what they do to fight. That makes them so unique.
Yeah, and like as they get later on, like his 15th is not that great. Like you could get Evasion, which is like a lower level rogue and monk feature, and
yeah, it's really weird. It's like they saw this
uncanny dodge.
They saw that it was going to be a half caster and decided to make it a half martial as well.
Mm-hmm. And then we got Beastmaster, which has been greatly altered, and we will get to that. But again, we're talking about if you like beginning player handbook. Beastmaster was worthless. It was Beastmaster and Monk's Way of the Four Elements of Tide of the worst picks you could have. That was the meta. If D&D ever has a meta, that which it does, came out.
Yeah, right. If D&D had a meta, she said after 1,200 hours of content discussing this crap.
Usually, you see a meta in like competitive stuff. That's what I was saying. Like it's a little different. So the biggest issue with the Beastmaster was being it takes your action to make it attack. It's not a bonus action. Like all the new stuff with summons and companions, it's bonus action. This is your entire action to get the beast to attack. And the beast has to be a medium beast that is a challenge rating of 1/4 or lower.
Yeah.
So it's really not that good. And then like your proficiency bonus and stuff starts boosting it, so it does level a bit with you, but it's really, really not that great. Later on at 7th level, nope.
No, 11th? It still sucks.
It's 11th.
It just gives it multi-attack.
At what point can you...
At any point, you can forego one of your weapon attacks in order to allow it to attack. So it's once you have the extra attack feature, so level 5, you can make one weapon attack yourself when you command the beast to take the attack action. So at 11th level, you can have it take 2 attacks and you get 1 attack, while its attacks are doing, I don't know, 1d8 damage plus 3 maybe, if it hits.
Right. So it sucks. It's no good.
Yeah, and it was such a shame too, because I mean, everybody wants a ranger that's good, that has a little pet. That's like one of the joys of a ranger, is to have that niche of person fighting with a pet. I mean, I guess you could do it with druid maybe, but we've talked about the weirdness of a druid sending an animal into battle. It doesn't really fit, but it's pretty fitting for a ranger.
Mm-hmm.
So, bad.
Yeah. All right, so Wizards of the Coast, I think, took a lot of this feedback and attempted, at least, to fix it. And because next you had Xanathars, where there's 3 new subclasses, which got a big power boost. And so did they fix it in Xanathars?
And this is the Gloomstalker, Horizon Walker, and we were just talking about it.
Monster Slayer.
There we go, Monster Slayer.
Yes. To answer my own question, I would say they half fixed it. These new subclasses are strong in combat and make up for a lot of what was lacking, but none of these touch the core Ranger issues. Favorite enemy and Natural Explorer, and how they completely remove the exploration pillar and don't interact with it well, and it's very situational. Like, you still have that. You're not getting away from it.
Right, because at the end of the day, as we just spent 20 minutes going through, the core of the issue is in the base class. It's really not the subclasses. The Beastmaster was one, but looking at the individual subclasses from beginning to when we get to Tasha's, there's good stuff in there. I mean, Just
now, yeah, when D&D first came out and all you had was player handbook, you had 2 subclasses, and one of them was worthless. So like that was a big problem.
Right.
Now it's a little less of a problem.
So Gloomstalker addressed it by just adding tons of damage and tons of in-combat abilities. Things like the Dread Ambush, which you give yourself a bonus to initiative rolls equal to your wisdom, and you don't even have to be in your favorite terrain for that. Wild. And on the first turn of combat, you get additional walking speed, and when you take the attack action, you get an additional attack, and you do extra damage. And that part was awesome. I mean, it's considered one of the strongest third level abilities for a ranger, and I think it stands today as extremely powerful in combat.
The Dread Ambusher?
Yes, Dread Ambusher.
Yeah, and then they also get Umbral Sight, where you have dark vision out to 60 feet, or... if you already have it, increases by 30 feet. And then any creature that's relying on dark vision to see you, you are invisible too. Which is awesome. I mean, that is situational, but it's not the only thing they get, and it's so good when it comes up. I think it's worth it that it's situational.
Right, and I think it starts to show off the flavor of them. I mean, you have this ranger who's literally able to hide right under the noses of creatures who normally rely on dark vision. It's showing they are the best at being in this area, in this type of terrain, which Gloomstalkers, mostly the Underdark is what you're expecting, because most everything there has dark vision. Though,
right,
let's be real, in D&D, most things just have dark vision.
Mm-hmm. It's very common. Which makes Umbral Sight even better.
Right.
So, yeah, that's a subclass where I feel like it does have a very strong flavor, though you can make it work outside of the Underdark and other things like that. But if you pull them out of the Underdark, it gets a little strange of combining the Gloomstalker with, like, favorite enemy and favorite terrain and the nature magic aspects. I don't think this is one where it's too terrible with that. But it does start to feel a little weird. That's these 3 subclasses, I think, is where you start to feel a little friction, where they start to deviate from that core of that, and the kind of the core concept of what a ranger is starts to get weakened.
Right, and it does a lot to, again, it tries to outshine the base class and make you forget that those abilities are there, instead of working with them to make those better or make those more interesting, which a lot of... I'm trying to think of examples, but I'm going to fall flat. But that's what I view as a good subclass. A subclass that makes the base class's abilities better or shine. And instead it's saying, don't look over there, because the 7th level ability or 6th level ability is going to suck, and your every ability isn't going to be as important as what you get from your subclass. Which just creates dead levels, and that's not fun.
100%. Horizon Walker doesn't really address that either. I feel Horizon Walker's a little weak overall. This one does tie back into the core, though, about the Rangers protects the fringes of civilization from that which would threaten it.
That's
and
true.
This one specifically focuses on extraplanar threats. It's like that's just a little twist on it. It's just kind of fine.
A lot of build up for that.
Yeah. I guess I don't have strong opinions on it. Like, detect portal feels like an NPC ability.
Yeah,
we've portals nearby.
We've made
talked about
jokes about that before. I mean, it's just it's not interesting. It's like
no.
It throws on this as an action thing, as if you're like going to be doing this in combat of detecting portals and within a mile of you, and that's just silly. Otherwise, I mean, you get a pretty nice 3rd level ability of is a bonus action, and it has to be a creature you can see within 30 feet of you. When you hit that creature with a weapon attack, all damage dealt by the attack becomes force damage, and they take an extra 1d8. When you're 11th level, the extra damage becomes 2d8. So that, I mean, just from a class uniqueness is pretty good, because force damage more or less overcomes all resistances, except for force, obviously. But there's very few things that resist that. And I think that fits well with the idea of a ranger being prepared for whatever comes their way.
This is a little bit of a derailment, but it fits here. One of the things I've always found kind of struggles with the Rangers thematically is they seem like the kind of people that wouldn't be in the party for a very long time. They're more detached in flavor than a lot of the other classes and have less reasons to be going for these things. And this one especially, like you're wandering around any kind of normal environment, you have to ask yourself, why is this extraplanar warrior hanging around with us?
100%. Yeah, I guess that could have been a good thing to talk about at the player handbook area, because like one of the the flavor text describing what a ranger is, one of the headings is literally independent adventurers. And it does go into explain about how they liked independence and like the sheltered city dwellers, you know, they find annoying, but they have other benefits. It's usually worth being with them when they have something big to tackle. But I feel like that just shoehorns you into such like a really specific.
I mean, they even have this in Natural Explorer. If you are traveling alone, you can move stealthily at a normal pace. Why are you traveling alone?
Right. Why would you
When does that
ever
happen?
be doing that?
Right.
Yeah, so
Yeah, maybe the issue isn't that it has the weakest class identity, but it has one of the strongest, most narrow, and nothing fits in it. It's so hard to fit things in it.
That's true too.
Yeah, it might be kind of the opposite, but it's the same end effect. It's just things. There's a lot of friction. There's a lot of dissonance.
Right. I mean, when your core class idea says like you should be alone, it doesn't really work with a big party, and it also doesn't really ever have abilities that help other people. I mean, at least not commonly. Looking at other marshals,
healing magic.
I guess they get
Spells.
healing
They're
magic.
spells.
That's fair.
Yeah.
I was just thinking, even like the fighting styles, where usually you get the protection ones, like fighter and paladin both have ones that are specifically able to protect people, and that's kind of their play style potentially, is drawing damage to themselves. Rangers are almost more like, I guess, rogues in that aspect, where it's like, nah, you're all on your own and whatever. But even rogues need other people because they need people to be within 5 feet to get sneak attack.
Which, yeah, I know this isn't the rogue one, but I do really think that's beautiful design, because like rogues have the potential, like, all right, these are another class that wants to be alone, so like that really ties it back in.
Yeah, and I think rogues don't fall into that trap because they are commonly associated with criminals, and criminal organizations are just that, organizations. It doesn't even go so far to say as Rangers work with other Rangers, and in earlier editions, I think it was when Rangers were first around, there was explicitly a rule where there could be no more than 3 Rangers in a party. Like they weren't allowed to work together, and it was codified. It was that intense.
Wow. In 5th edition, there is a line that says, in some places, Rangers gather in secretive orders or join forces with druidic circles.
Okay.
So it does happen.
Well, obviously it happens, or else.
Yeah, well, yeah.
But it definitely does.
Yeah,
it feels like you're making excuses, not reasons. Not you specifically.
Right. Right.
But yeah, it feels like you have to like reach for it and be like, yeah, so despite all of my loner tendencies, here's why I'm here for now. But usually it should be like, not should be, but it feels like it's going to be singularly focused, and once that's completed, they're like, all right, back to the woods with me. See ya.
Right. Yeah, literally the next line after that, where it says, sometimes they'll join up, it says, many Rangers, though, are independent almost to a fault, knowing that when a dragon or a band of orcs attacks, a Ranger might be first and possibly the last line of defense. Yeah. So you bring up a very good point, Will. Then specifically with the Horizon Walker, like once whatever threat the party's facing, like assuming that has to do with extraplanar entities and all of that, once that's solved, assuming that's not the end of the campaign, why would this Ranger stick around?
Right. And if you want to look at it for like different campaigns, I mean, if even like pre-written ones, Storm King's Thunder is one that comes to mind. That one has literally nothing to do with portals or protecting dimensions in any capacity. And so I don't see why somebody would look at that subclass and be like, I should play that. I think I can make that work here. And I think any other subclass, you and I mean that across the game, you should really be able to come up with a reason why your adventurer would want to participate in this particular thing. But with Horizon Walker, it almost seems, again, codified that you're going to show up to fix the portal problem and you're going to leave.
Right.
Just like imagining if you had any of these problems, you were like, I got to call my portal guy. It's a Horizon Walker.
Right. And he just portals through it, and they're like, is that okay? Are you allowed to use portals? And he's like, yeah, I'm the portal guy.
It's cool when I do it.
Yeah.
I got a portal license. I'm portal certified. These jabronis, they're not portal certified. They got to go back.
So, I mean, I feel like this is more of like a critique of this specific subclass, which it's not unwarranted, but I really wish this one gave a little bit more reason why you were, I guess, a protector of planar travel, and I guess, I don't know, could have other hooks into doing other things. Mm-hmm. I feel like there's a difference between being one with portals and being against other planar entities, because they could have gone with it from that aspect of like, you're well versed in traveling different planes and you are a planeswalker, like the whatever that means in Magic the Gathering. And
I think they're extra shiny cards.
They are. You could have your Jaces. I think that's one too. So this is all my Magic the Gathering knowledge coming out. That's it. We're done. Planeswalkers, some guy named Jace. I think. I could be wrong about that. And they're shiny cards. So there's nothing like that, though. It's not that they are walking between planes. It's that they're really trying to keep things out of their current plane.
Right. And then finally in Xanathars, you have Monster Slayer. This one goes back to kind of matching with the issue of Gloomstalker, where the Monster Slayer flavor, which you could 100% just gather what it is from the name of it, kind of works in any and all situations. Like, absolutely, it would make sense why the Monster Slayer would stick with the adventuring party, because what do adventuring parties seem to always do and run into? Monsters. So, no issues there, but there's a lot of that dissonance, that friction with the base class. The Natural Explorer. Not so much favorite enemy, because you could pick Monstrosity as a favorite enemy.
Sure. It's just not going to do anything.
Right.
It's exactly what I was saying earlier.
Better.
Right, where it's not that anything in this subclass makes favorite enemy better. They could have put in something, and I guess I'm glad they didn't long term, but they could have put in something that was like, this adds on this additional benefit to your favorite enemy. Like, this is how your ranger fights their favorite enemy, and you get this addition because of it. But instead, it's like, ignore favorite enemy, not worth it. Hey, if you got a track, I guess you're going to roll at advantage. But here's everything else.
If it's a monstrosity, which is a rare monster type. One of the things that Monster Slayer would stereotypically fight are, and a lot of times, not monstrous within like the monstrosity category within the Monster Manual and all of that. Like, in its flavor text, the Monster Slayer seeks out vampires, dragons, evil fae, fiends, and other magical threats. Not a one of those is the monstrosity type. Vampires are undead, dragons are dragons, fae are... Is fae... Yeah, fae is a monster type.
It's a type.
Fiends are fiends. I mean... And so even taking favorite enemy, monstrosity, just still wouldn't even help you.
No, and just, I could think of things for days to make this subclass different. I don't know about better. I won't just say that flat out. But, I mean, even this seems like the perfect time to introduce the ability to change your favorite enemy on the fly. Like, this is the subclass that can do it. You're going to the Feywild. Great. This person knows how to research everything about the Feywild, so that way when they're there, they're prepared. And they've got the networks to get this information. But we don't see anything like that.
No, nothing like that. It is solid, though, I think. I like this subclass. I've played it long-term in a campaign a while back and had a lot of fun with it. Very, very front-loaded, like to get extra spells, which is great. And 100 cents where they could use an action to read a creature, which can be really helpful in terms of getting like damage immunities, resistance, vulnerabilities, or any other odd things that happens. Like if they ever regenerate, acid damage stops the regeneration and things like that. I think that's super fitting.
It is. I hate how it's a whole action to use that. I mean, it feels like a bonus action ability.
Yeah, it just might be kind of strong as a bonus action. See, I see this more like if you know you're like going to fight in a nest of vampires, you use it on the first one, and then that helps you a bunch.
Okay.
Things like that.
That's fair. Yeah, if you know you're going to be fighting more of these creatures, then sure, it's worthwhile. But I don't think that being able to, as a subclass ability, learn damage immunities, resistance, or vulnerabilities as infrequently as they come up, I don't think that being a bonus action to obtain and limited by your wisdom modifier per long rest is so powerful that it'd be like, whoa, this subclass is what breaks the game. This is it, is that they can determine immunities. And that's, I don't know, I'm overblowing it for the sake of it, but
sure. No, did they errata this? I could have swore there was a line that was saying, and I don't remember the wording, but it was like basically saying if anything unique happens when it takes damage or does damage, you learn that too. Such as because it's not in there anymore. I even gave the example if they regenerate, you learn what stops the regeneration. That's not in there anymore. Was that a UA maybe?
It could have been in the UA, but that's hard to remember.
Okay. Yeah. So it doesn't have. So you're right. So just resistance, vulnerabilities, and immunities. Yeah, that's just okay.
My intuition says that it should tell you that.
Right, and other special attributes. They never really had like a name for those. We always called them passive abilities, but I feel like that would be the perfect time to throw that in there. You learn that a troll has regeneration unless you do fire or acid damage.
Right.
My position on this is I think this is one of the most important things hidden in a subclass that shouldn't be. When I was like giving my spiel on the Ranger, my take on it is that they are the knowledgeable marshal, that they know how to fight, and I think something like this being part of the base class makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And like know your enemy from the fighter subclass, the battle master, never made much sense to me, and it kind of sucks.
Yeah.
1 minute to find like raw stats. I kind of hate that. But
it just didn't think if it's higher or lower than yours.
Yeah. I think this, if you maybe souped it up and put it in the base class, this would provide a lot of value for a party that comes from no other source. There's nobody else at the table who will be able to tell you this creature needs to be doused in acid on a Tuesday while the moon's out. But this one could.
Yes.
Yeah. No, I think you're totally right.
That would be really cool.
But save it, Will. Save it for the what we want to see segment, all right? There's going to be some positivity in here.
I can't.
I was going to say, there's been a lot of negativity, so I'm good with peppering the positivity in. This episode's starting to be kind of a downer.
It is. All right.
But to continue the positivity, like I said, I do like that Monster Slayer. I don't think it overcomes the base Ranger issues.
No.
But the Monster Slayer subclass is awesome with the Slayer's Prey, which I think is kind of like what Hunter's Mark should be. That's another one where it's like, they kind of codified Hunter's Mark as, I think, his favorite foe in Tasha's. We'll get to that.
I've got...
Yeah, and like Slayer's Prey is another way to do that. And it's like, maybe they should have just did that. But yeah, it's almost like the Monster Slayer should have been, Yeah, in a way, it's kind of like the base Ranger.
Oh, that's actually unique. That's a neat idea. Take every single one of these abilities and just replace them with like, favorite foe? Nah, you get Hunter's Sense. Favorite foe? No, you get Slayer's Prey. Supernatural Defense? You get that at 6th level. I mean, just replace all of those mediocre abilities with the subclass here, and I legitimately think you'd have a much better class. I mean, Slayer's Counter, being a 20th level ability, might not be great, but it's still better than what we get. And that's at 15th level, you gain the ability to counterattack when your prey tries to sabotage you. If the target of your Slayer's Prey forces you to make a saving throw, you use your reaction to make one weapon attack against the quarry. You make this attack immediately before making the saving throw, and if your attack hits, your save automatically succeeds in addition to the attack's normal effects. So,
which is really cool.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah.
Not the strongest level 20 ability, but it'd be like, ooh, that feels like a Ranger.
The whole thing does it. Just especially like the flavor in the player handbook saying like they fight the monsters and the things in the wilderness and protect the fringes of society and civilization. It's like all of this does that exactly in any setting. All it's missing is the exploration stuff. So then maybe throw in the ability for expertise. And so if you want to be that nature-y ranger, you take expertise in nature and survival. And you're basically accomplish everything favored foe and favored terrain is doing anyways. Or favored enemy.
I would like to see this. I want to like try that for a one-shot.
Yeah.
It sounds like it would be crazy powerful, but like I
wouldn't take literally these abilities and just paste them in there. But the concept of this.
I mean, that's an
it's
extreme
not a bad thing
suggestion,
to
but
take
it's
from.
not that bad. It's like,
No.
how do you fix the ranger? Let them take 2 subclasses simultaneously.
But again, it's not even, in my eyes, it's not for the power level. Because I think by itself, Monster Slayers, it's a fairly strong subclass. It feels good compared to other classes, other players. You're going to have a fine time. It's the fact that everything you see in Monster Slayers, what we're saying, is missing from making a ranger unique and making it feel like the ranger we want it to be. So
The experts, the hunter, the protector,
right. So it's entirely a take 2 subclasses because now you have good flavor.
Mm-hmm.
So Xanathars, that's it on
Yes,
Xanathars.
that's Xanathars. And then there was nothing. Rangers weren't touched until Tasha's last year. I don't know the time frame between Xanathars and Tasha's, but that was actually a really big lull for most classes. There were not many subclasses released between those two.
A lot of UAs just hyping us up.
Yeah, right. So Tasha's did attempt to address the base ranger issue with optional class features. Tasha's did this for every class, and Rangers got a ton. So I think that's probably a good place to start before we talk about the subclasses, because this will change up the base. Did they fix it, Jared? I know you have strong opinions.
No, they didn't fix it because most of my complaints about the base of the Ranger are past level 10. You know, the 14th, 18th, and 20th level ability are all awful, and they didn't even go into those. And that's not even talking about what they did change, because I still don't really love what they did change, but they still only put a half solution in place for the early levels of play. And, you know, they took out the Natural Explorer entirely and replaced it with Deft Explorer. And I will say Deft Explorer is the one really positive thing about this change. It is significantly better. So I guess to take your answer from last time, they kind of half fixed it.
Yes.
Where they've
100%
added...
agree.
Yeah, in Deft Explorer, they added Canny, which does give you that expertise in a chosen skill, and then you can read, write, and speak 2 additional languages. Okay, that seems pretty
and this is those are at first level.
Right. Then at 6th level, instead of a second or another language added or another skill, like would be the direct parallel of Natural Explorer, we get something interesting. Roving. Your walking speed increases by 5, you gain a climb speed, and a swimming speed equal to your walking speed. I love that.
Yes.
Wow, that's something that might come up once in a game. Maybe even more.
I would say more. And I think that...
Maybe every single round of combat, it comes up.
I think,
That's a 5 feet increase, and then getting a climb and swim speed is awesome. That's
I think the
very
climbing
useful.
speed is one that cannot be overlooked, because when you start adding verticality to your play field and you have somebody who can climb and uses it, especially if they are ranged attackers, it really changes up combat. I mean, we had that one campaign where I think our friend was playing a rogue who had a climb speed, and he used it a lot, climbing up trees, climbing up ledges, and getting a better angle. It made it difficult for me as a DM to move my pieces around the battlefield and get to a point where I could challenge him. And that's a good thing.
Right.
Like, it was a really interesting way with just adding a climbing speed. It changed things up.
And then to run tireless at 10, as an action, give yourself 10 hit points when you place your wisdom modifier. You can use this number of times equal to your proficiency bonus, getting back on a long rest. In addition, whenever you finish a short rest, your exhaustion level decreases by 1. Another great one. So I think this Deft Explorer does a good job of maintaining the ability to make your ranger still, if you want to be that like the wilderness person, the survival expert, and all that, but by picking expertise in that and roving and tireless definitely fit in that. But if that's not what you're going for, these are still useful features, and you could just reflavor it a little bit, pick expertise in something else.
Yeah, and
I think this is a good fix of good replacement of natural explorer. I think that solves that problem. And it's no longer just only engaging with the exploration pillar by just removing it.
Yeah, and I don't know if I absolutely love tireless. I feel like I could have a couple tweaks about it, but I won't get super into that. I'll agree. It's overall a great fix for it. For what it's worth, we did go really in depth on these changes in our Ranger episode when Tasha's first came out. So if you want to hear us really just go into that, or even just our opinions have changed potentially over the last year plus. I don't know how long it's been since Tasha's came out. Year and a half.
November of 2020.
Yeah, and we have. I think I've played one. I know that you've played one, Ellie. Will, have you played a Ranger since Tasha's?
Nope.
Okay, that's fine. It's 2 out of 3. That's pretty good. But then we get to Favorite Foe, which is replacing the favorite enemy. So, as we discussed earlier, favorite enemy was basically worthless, and they decided to replace it with another basically worthless ability. So
that's a little strong.
No, I feel that way very strongly, because Hunter's Mark takes care of everything that this tries to do and does it better. Favorite Foe is when you hit a creature with an attack roll, you can mark it for a minute, and you have to concentrate on this ability. And the first time that you hit on each of your turns, you can increase the damage, whatever you're doing, by 1d4. And you can do this a number of times up to your proficiency bonus, regain them all on a long rest. And the damage goes up at 6th level and 14th level to a d6 and a d8, respectively. So, direct comparison to Hunter's Mark, which is a level 1 spell. Hunter's Mark is also concentration. Hunter's Mark allows you to do damage every hit, not just on a single hit. It's a d6 right out the gate. It can be moved between creatures, so that if you cast a first level spell, it lasts for an hour, and you can move it between enemies during that entire fight. And I believe even if you find another fight after, like within that hour, whether or not that happens, I don't know, but if you upcast it, it lasts longer. So, you can have it last for an entire adventuring day, potentially, if you stay concentrating on it. Even when we get to 1d8 at 14th level, Hunter's Mark, a first level spell, is still better, because being able to do 2d6 per turn instead of 1d8 is just better. And it has other benefits as well. The tracking abilities that you're basically losing from losing favorite enemy, you could argue. And I think they can't hide from you as well, or it makes it harder. I don't remember that part.
Yeah, you have advantage on perception and survival checks you make to find your marked creature. That's Hunter's Mark, not favorite foe.
Right.
Just to clarify that.
Yeah. So it's just, I tried playing a character that only used favorite foe and did not take Hunter's Mark, and I felt significantly hindered by it.
Yeah, it's the two things it has going for it. It doesn't take a spell slot, which Rangers are limited in. So frees it up for other things. And that is a big resource. And it doesn't take your bonus action. Hunter's Mark is a bonus action. This is when you hit. But it's also limited. So if you put it on something you think that's going to be alive longer, you hit them, you tag them with favorite foe, and then it's killed in the next round, that is your use of it gone. And you only have a limit up to your proficiency bonus. So at first you can do this twice per long rest. That is pretty limited, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah,
and the Ranger class as a whole, at even second level, has 2 first level spells, and you'd be able to cast 1 Hunter's Mark at the start of combat, and again, as long as you don't lose concentration, then you're holding it throughout the entire thing. And the higher you go up, you're just kind of expected as a Ranger to be concentrating on Hunter's Mark in 5th edition. Whether or not that's a good thing, I don't know. I guess probably not, but it's usually the best option in combat. So you're not using a ton of spells in that right. Because if you're just casting level 1 spells or level 2 spells to keep it even longer, you're not blowing through your spells as a half caster. It's not like an artificer.
Right, and it's not freeing up your concentration slot for something. Like with Zephyr Striker or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, it is pretty worthless, isn't it? I think this is the same conclusion and we went through in our Tasha
I think so, but now I've got more malice because I was like, well, maybe I'm wrong. Like, maybe I'll give it a shot. And then we played that one shot, and I was like, oh, nope, everything I thought was true. It's not good.
Mm-hmm.
I guess the question is, all right, well, I mean, we're all in agreement this is not good. They pulled their punch on this way too hard.
Mm-hmm.
But is it as useless as what it replaces?
Yes. I think they are equally as useless. Because
of the concentration.
Because of the concentration.
Like, it's not going to get use.
Exactly. Once you realize that Hunter's Mark is just better in every scenario, the only time this is going to come up are the days where you run out of spell slots and you still want a little bit of damage and you've got nothing else to concentrate on, which to me comes up just as often as times where you need to track down something that is your favorite enemy. We're just talking about once in a campaign, maybe, and even then you're not ecstatic that you have it. You're pretty okay with it. Hate this ability.
It's pretty disappointing. As like the big fix to the Ranger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even if you just remove concentration, it is better, but then it stacks with Hunter's Mark, and I know they were trying to avoid that weirdness, which is fair, I guess, but it's just messy. It's very messy.
Yeah. Because, I mean, it could already stack with Slayer's Prey, the Monster Slayer one.
That's the Rangers who love cheese, right?
Yes. No, they hate it. They slay it. They slay monster cheese.
Okay.
Well, that could be a positive slay. Like, I'm going to slay this tray of monster.
That's how I was taking it. Yeah, but that's whatever.
Just squares of cheese stabbed with a dagger into a tree as a warning. Stabbing cheese in the forest.
What were you saying about it stacking with Monster Slayer? Anything? Or just you just want to keep talking about cheese?
You were saying that you could understand and want to avoid the confusion of favorite foe stacking with Hunter's Mark, because that's a lot of extra dice, and which time do I roll what? It's like, I don't think it's that hard to track, but Monster Slayer, it stacks with Slayer's Prey.
Right.
Anyway, favorite foe... Yeah, favorite foe or Hunter's Mark stacks with Slayer's Prey, which isn't... So it's the same issue. It's like that already exists. Right? It's like not that hard to track.
No.
And Slayer's Prey is also a better version of this.
Yes.
Because that's 1d6.
Well, yeah, I mean, you could...
But so they did kind of take what we were just talking about. Of like, all right, so the Monster Slayer, the core stuff is kind of like... fits really well for the core Ranger. And that's what this is.
They tried.
Just worse.
Yeah. Yeah, they fell short because, Slayer's Prey, the critique you could make now that we've all seen the proficiency bonus switch, and I think I don't know about you two, but I like the change from refresh on a short or long rest to proficiency bonus. I think it allows for more versatility as a DM, as a player, everybody. It's better. And Slayer's Prey comes back on a short or long rest. So that's definitely a detriment to it. And if they had just taken Slayer's Prey and put it in and said, hey, this is the new core Ranger feature, it would have felt lacking. There would have
Slayer's Prey doesn't have a limit.
Yeah, this benefit lasts until you finish a short or long rest. You finish a
shorter. It ends early if you designate a different creature.
Oh.
There's no limit. You can just do this infinitely. It's no concentration. It's a D6 damage once per turn. It's a bonus action to put it on.
I did totally misread that. Okay, so yeah, that probably should have just been what they used.
Yeah. But then it's outshining Monster Slayer, and that's the issue. It's like they wrote themselves into a corner. They wrote the Monster Slayer subclass, which is so great. And it's like, oh yeah, this would be really awesome. It's like, let's borrow all this. Then it's like, then you have to get rid of the Monster Slayer subclass. And they're not big on that.
No, but I would have been fine with that sacrifice. I mean, we got rid of the Purple Dragon Knight. We can get rid of the Monster Slayer for the opposite reason.
Is Purple Dragon Knight actually like gotten rid of? Like,
yes, because it has not been reprinted, and Sword Coast Adventure Guide is no longer Adventure League legal.
Okay.
So
If they catch you playing a Purple Dragon Knight, you are banned from D&D.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean that's what I go off of. I don't even play Adventure League, but it's kind of their unofficial way of saying we're not supporting this class anymore.
Right. Okay, I think we can move on from that one.
Yeah.
Beat that one into the ground.
I hope so.
Yeah. They get some new spells.
And they just don't count against
the
number, and they can cast them once per day, basically for free.
Is that no the additional ranger spells? I think it's just options.
You can cast each of these spells once without expending a spell slot. Once you cast a spell in this way, you can't do so again until you finish a long rest.
Where are you reading that?
Primal Awareness underneath the list of spells.
Oh, no. I'm sorry. I was talking additional ranger spells. Second level ranger feature.
Yeah, I was passing over that.
It's
that's
just,
not interesting.
Yeah, it's just an expanded. Sure. Okay.
Sorry.
Expanded spell list. Yeah.
On a different page. My bad.
Yeah. Okay. Fighting style options. New ones. It's just new ones added in Tasha's. So whatever. Yeah, Primal Awareness. So that does replace the Primal Awareness feature, which we didn't really talk about. That's when you can like send out a ping and like know if there's like Fae or Fiends or whatever around you, which isn't.
Oh, geez, did we forget to talk about that one?
Yeah, we did.
Oh, that's like the worst feature ever. Where is that?
Third level. It's under Ranger archetypes.
Oh my god, I totally forgot about that. That's like the worst ability in the game. And I can't believe we didn't bring that up.
Oh, right, because it takes a spell slot. Right,
yeah.
right. Yeah, so it's at third level you get this. For 1 minute per level of the spell slot you expend, and it's an action. Yeah, an action expend one Ranger spell. So for 1 minute per spell level, you can sense whether the following types of creatures are present within 1 mile or within 6 miles if you're in your favorite terrain. So there you go. That's where that could be used.
Sure.
Aberration, Celestial, Dragon, Elementals, Fae, Fiends, and Undead. It doesn't reveal the creature's location or number.
Yeah.
It's like, it's a spell slot.
That's truly the worst ability in all of Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. It's laughable.
Uh-huh. It's like a detriment.
Yeah. Like,
it's a drain.
Guys,
here's this negative feature to balance you out because you're too good otherwise.
I am positive that we had a joke in some episode that covered a ranger where we were bitching about this, talking about like it was probably the Ranger Druid where you could like turn into an eagle and use this to ping around and like triangulate the position of something.
Right.
And that's its only use. Only use. And you'd have to burn so many spell slots to do it. It's just goofy. It's worthless. Absolutely worthless. Doesn't reveal the location or number. Get out of here.
Yep, within 6 miles of us, there's an undead.
I can smell them. And I remember when we first started playing, we misused that. And I believe like we were giving numbers at the very least, or location or something.
I think we used a homebrew rewrite, or the UA
That's possible too.
Of the Ranger. All right, so the optional class feature, Primal Awareness, replaces the Primal Awareness feature. It's kind of confusing they gave it the same name. Basically, yeah, each level, 3rd, 5th, 9th, 13th, and 17th, you get a new spell. You can cast it once.
The first one's
spend a spell slot.
Primeval Awareness. This is Primal Awareness.
I misread that.
Yeah.
Okay, I misread it.
Sorry, go ahead.
So, yeah, these free spells, they're fine. They're not that interesting. It's more of a ribbon ability, but that it was like, it's better. It's definitely better. Yeah,
I think
Speak with Animals.
It once again does
sense.
like what not Deft Explorer. Well, you were saying how there's like
Deft Explorer.
Yeah, this like kind of no, you were saying the opposite. You're saying Deft Explorer, you can ignore the flavor of it and say like, no, okay, you don't care about the nature-y aspects. Great. This one, you do kind of have to be in line with the nature-y aspects, which I'm okay with because I, again, think that Rangers need that nature aspect in order to feel like Rangers. So we get Speak with Animals. I mean, if your whole thing is entirely just flat out, I kill monsters and that's it, Speak with Animals might not make a ton of sense. But if your whole thing is using the natural world to find and kill monsters that you view as unnatural, then great. Speak with animals can make sense. Same with beast sense. Same with speak with plants. And then commune with nature. Locate creature is just ranger. Pure goodness.
Yep. So definitely an improvement. And then Intense Nature's Veil, they replace Hide in Plain Sight, that other feature we talked about. It's terrible. You spend a minute to camouflage yourself and only yourself, and you can't move. So you draw on the powers of nature to hide yourself from view briefly. As a bonus action, you can magically become invisible along with your equipment until the start of your next turn. And then you can use this number of times equal to your proficiency bonus. Get them all back on a long rest. Definitely better than Hide in Plain Sight.
Yeah.
It's still a solo thing, but this can be used in combat. And I think that's where you would use it.
Yeah, and you could probably find uses outside of combat, if nobody
6
else.
6 seconds of invisibility.
Yeah, I know it sounds like super limited, but I'm sure somebody could come up with a way that's useful. Needing to stealth from one side, like a specific stealth check, for example. If you're like, okay, I need to get from this side to this area, I'm going to, use my invisibility for those 6 seconds and be a master at stealth for these 6 seconds. And that's more the flavor of it in my eyes. I know it says you turn invisible, but I don't know how important that aspect is. It says
What do you
nature.
mean?
Well, because that's like the mechanical representation of it is you become invisible. With it saying nature's veil, to me that's like you are hiding in whatever it is. Like it's you become one with the forest, and that's it. It's like hide in plain sight was supposed to be covering yourself in soot and whatever. I guess that's how I would think of it.
Sure, but I mean this could be used literally anywhere.
Yep.
That's the middle of a city.
And for like out of combat use, like for instance, if you have to run through a guarded door, this would be perfect.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm definitely saying that it would be a little odd to somebody just be like standing still and just be like, as a ranger, I'm going invisible for 6 seconds in the middle of this conversation, and then you come back. It's like, well, okay, that's not how I view this actually working from a flavor standpoint. It's more of like you're moving through something, and if it's in a city, you become one with the crowd for 6 seconds.
Sure. Anyways, so yeah, optional class features, then they stop there, nothing higher, and as we talked about, 11 through 20 is not great, and they don't touch it at all.
No, they needed to print those god-awful pre-built fighter classes. I don't know if there was like this is such a different tangent, I'm sorry, but they had like the pre-built like, oh, this is what a character would look like if you want to play this style, and it had like just these terrible combinations of, you're a battle master with this ability and this fighting style that you already get from something else, and it was just like a total mess. Anyways, let's move on. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So optional class features. As I said, I think kind of half does it. If Favored Foe was better, I would say it nailed it. But it all kind of centered around that. Favored Foe replacing Favored Enemy, the two like main things of the Ranger. And it's still just not there. It improved the rest of it for the most part, but it fell short, which is really disappointing.
Yep.
They were so close. Then we have the two subclasses, Swarmkeeper and Fey Wanderer, which I feel continue in the vein of what Xanathar's did. Just really strong subclasses to try and kind of boost the main core class. And they succeed on that. Swarmkeeper's really cool. You played one, Jared. You loved it. That character felt really powerful.
Yeah, that was the same one where I didn't have Hunter's Mark. So that subclass very specifically felt strong, and same deal. Basic Ranger, not so much.
Yeah. It's unique, it's flavorful, it's fun. It's like a weird niche in how it like combines with the Ranger of like protecting the outer fringes of civilization from the wilds and monsters and all that. And it's like, I do that by controlling a swarm of bugs. It almost feels a little silly, like if you break it down like that, but it's whatever. It's fun. Like I'm not upset about it. Just
no, I agree, and
it's like a weird kind of silly fit into how it fits into like the core Ranger.
Yeah, I think from the aspect of trying to call this one a Ranger, it falls a little bit short, but I don't care. I still love the subclass. But it does feel like they just kind of were like, well, this isn't the Ranger. This is the Marshal subclass half-caster that gets bugs. Like it's not a Ranger, but you don't care because it's pretty cool, right? And everyone's like, yeah, you're right.
Yeah. And there's no reason, and you can't use those bugs to help protect the fringes of civilization.
Why would I do that? I've got bees surrounding me. I'm going to do whatever I want. I maybe have some predispositions here.
Right. And the Swarm Keeper also has the feature where it does extra damage on an attack. So it's kind of like competing with Favorite Foe and Hunter's Mark. But again, it doesn't...
No concentration.
They can be used together. There's no concentration, yeah.
Yeah.
And then...
I was just going to say, same deal of this subclass we do. Also have a very deep dive breakdown of every single thing. So...
Yeah, it's a good one. And then Fey Wanderer is... this one I feel fits well with the Ranger. So the Fey is very important to the wilds and the wilderness within the material plane, that they just kind of go hand in hand. And so it's not that far-fetched to think I'm a Ranger, I exist in the wilds and on the fringes of civilization, and I've got intertwined, and the Fae became important to me. And so I'm a Ranger of the Fae and the material plane.
Then this is more of what I wanted the Horizon Walker to be. Mm-hmm. But the Horizon Walker obviously is a little too flavor agnostic, whereas the Fey Wanderer is saying that my outside fringes are the Fey Wilds, and that's what I want to protect, as well as the material plane. And that's specifically put in the flavor text that you are representative of both, not just the material plane, keeping the Fey out.
And again, it's a solid one. And yes, this is Tasha's. When Xanathars came out, we weren't even really doing the podcast then, were we?
No, we started the podcast immediately after Xanathars came out.
Right. Yeah. So we didn't have detailed coverage of each of those subclasses. The Tasha subclasses we do. We have videos, episodes dedicated to them. So there's Fey Wanderer. Yes. If you're on YouTube, I guess it's kind of sad for the podcasters. There's no way to link within it.
Nobody's complained yet.
Yeah. If you're on YouTube, we got the little cards at the top there in these little things.
So same deal. I think they're all subclasses going forward for the Ranger are going to have that feeling, though, where the subclass is the star of the show to keep you from looking at the base class any deeper. I don't think there's been a single meaningful attempt at making pieces of the base class more interesting through subclasses.
No, I agree.
And we could probably talk about Drake Warden.
Well, there's one more change in Tasha's to the Beastmaster. Okay, yeah, so in Tasha's then, they also did rewrite the Beastmaster, which is much needed. By that, it's just the third level feature, which I think is fine. It no longer takes an action to command it. It is a bonus action on your turn, right?
Yes.
Yeah, just spend a bonus action. And you no longer have to find a challenge rating 1/4 medium beast or less and train it. Also, if that dies, you have to redo that process in the base one. This one now you have one of 3 stat blocks to pick: Beast of Land, Beast of Sea, Beast of Sky. And they're defined stat blocks. You could just resummon them because it's your magical companion. You don't have to hunt another bear down and spend 8 hours training it. I think that's quite literally what the original Beastmaster had you do. It just works better. It's cleaner. It's a lot nicer. It is in line with all the other summons and companions. You can still flavor it however you want. Beast of the Land can be a bear. It could be a boar. It could be a spider. It could be a big cat. Whatever you want. Same with Sea and of the Sky, any of the bird type things. So you can still have all that and play it this is my beast and I don't change it. But if you like that versatility, if you like kind of feels more like a Pokemon Master where you're changing them out based on what you need, you could do that. I think it's just on a long rest. You have to resummon, but
no, I mean, you could do it if it dies though, couldn't you? If you just expend a spell slot.
You could touch it and expend a spell slot at fifth level or higher. The beast returns to life 1 minute.
Oh, okay.
When you
so no,
finish
you're
long
right.
rest, you get so many different primal beasts.
Yep, you are correct then.
Yeah. But it's still, that's better.
Yeah.
And these beasts are more powerful than any challenge rating 1/4 thing that awkwardly increases based off of proficiency bonus in some things but not others. You know, like its hit points are more in line. The Beast of the Land is 5 plus 5 times your ranger level. Like, that's great. That's going to keep them in line. That's going to keep them useful. Overall, I think the Beastmaster's change was much needed. It really does fix it.
Yeah, we haven't actually had a chance to play one yet, but I see no reasons why this wouldn't hold up compared to other classes.
Right. Then they still get the additional things, like exceptional training at 7th. I guess that's weird how that interacts.
Because right now you can use your bonus action at 3rd level, and then 7th level just gives you magical attacks now.
Yeah, so that's not that great. Bestial Fury, though, allows us to get 2 attacks. And then you can share spells at 15th, which is still nice. But so yeah, 7th becomes kind of a weird level.
Yeah. I mean, it's still definitely nice having magical attacks, just always overcoming. It's probably not strong enough on its own, but I don't know what else they could have done, I guess.
Right. And then finally, Fizzbon's Treasury of Dragons came out recently, and they had the Drake Warden in there. They're the most recent Ranger subclass, and I stand by the exact same critique of all the other ones. It's a strong subclass trying to kind of make up for a weak base. With the optional class features, it all works super well together. If you're not using the optional class features and using the player handbook base Ranger, it's kind of a weird one with like favorite enemy and natural explorer and that sort of stuff. But at this point, I don't think there's much reason to use those.
No. And
yeah.
Not at all.
Yeah. And yeah, we have a whole episode, a very recent episode, dedicated to the Drake Warden. So yeah, cards up at the top.
All right. So we have talked a lot about what we don't like about the Ranger. And I think it can be summarized in base classes lacking, subclasses tried to fix it, but they took away the class identity. Do you all agree with that?
Mm-hmm.
All right, cool. Look at that. We're agreeing on something.
Nodded for the podcasters.
Yeah. Now let's talk about what we would want to see in a Ranger. What could make this different? And again, if we had the wish spell and we could make the Ranger different, what would we do with it? I know my first thing.
Yeah, how about you go first?
Okay, my first thing is I would make Hunter's Mark part of the main class, and I think that they should get something similar to Invocations to change Hunter's Mark and make it feel like it is a strong structural part of the base class that is adjusted by invocations, that some of which are locked behind the different subclasses. So something like when you cast Hunter's Mark, if you are we'll just say Swarm Keeper, you cast Hunter's Mark, and maybe along with getting the benefits of Hunter's Mark, it also has a swarm of bees that come out and surround them. And let's see, I think I had some examples. What do I got here? Well, okay, let's even go away from the subclass stuff. But if it just like casts confusion, more or less. So you do your Hunter's Mark, and I have the Hunter's Mark invocation, whatever you want to call it, and it also forces them to make a saving throw. If they fail, they're Hunter's Marked and confused. And just adding little things like that to make the Hunter's Mark feel like it is part of the main class and is affecting things in more than just damage would make it a lot more interesting.
Sure. That particular example I think would be really powerful, but I like the
idea. And maybe that's a late level one.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, sure. Or being able to Hunter's Mark more than one thing at once as one of those special invocations, because there's a lot of talk of like, do you fight giants and big things at once, or are you fighting back the hordes? And Hunter's Mark is a very one at a time thing. Right. So if you want to be like the horde fighter, it doesn't work. So Hunter's Mark invocation where you cast it in targets, up to your wisdom modifier and things around.
Sure, that'd be really good for like the hunter subclass maybe. Or again, even if it's not subclass dependent and that's just something you can do, fine. I mean, just little things like that to make it feel unique to Rangers, I think would really focus on the hunter aspect of them that is talked about in the base class and talked about in what makes a Ranger, but it doesn't really shine through unless we try to lean heavily on these subclasses, and that's only some of them. Where this would make it for all of them. They all feel like hunters.
Absolutely. So now we get rid of favorite foe. I would have that replaced favorite foe and favorite enemy. Yeah. And then the obvious fixing 11 through 14. Like, I know high level play doesn't get a ton, so it's not like critical, but it is so bad it might as well be abandoned. What do you think a great Ranger level 20 capstone would be?
Probably something like, I don't know, like +5 to their attack roll.
That's the worst thing. Oh, wait a second. I got one. All right. Shoot till you miss, essentially.
Okay.
I like that.
You probably have to find some kind of limit on that, but I like it.
You want like a mode that they go into where they're just like shooting until they miss?
As an action, when you make the attack action, you can do this a certain number of times. You can shoot different things up to your, I don't know, like just keep going. Like,
okay,
more
no.
attacks than anyone else in the game.
I see where you're going with this.
Until you miss.
It's kind of like Steel Wind Strike, but as a 20th level ability. Where you might have the option to attack multiple things. So you're adding on obviously the ability to maybe make multiple rolls or something of some sort.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, I want to do it shoot because that excludes melee rangers.
Right.
But the idea is like, all right, I'm activating this and I get my 2 attacks. And after that, I keep rolling to hit and anything within range and within my movement. And if I hit, I keep going. It's like this crazy momentum gets going. And once you miss, it ends.
That sounds pretty cool.
It's 20th level. It's like not that crazy because at most it will probably average like an extra 2 attacks. So I wouldn't put too big a limit on it, but it's kind of.
Yeah, and not to get too.
Does it fit thematically with a ranger though?
I think so.
They're quick. They're deft. Yeah.
That's what I
get
out of
into it. Like
they're deft.
They have the Hunter's Mark only has the focused tunnel vision kind of thing going, and I think that fits with this.
Yeah. Yeah, he's kind of getting like a battle frenzy, but instead of like the barbarians, like I think that's literally one of the barbarians things, but maybe the berserk, but this like super hyper focus, just in the zone, just insane attacks. It somewhat steps on the toes of Monk.
Yeah,
a bit.
We need to do an episode on Monk too.
Yeah, I guess so. Jeez,
I say it would not.
Let's not worry about that for now.
I'll step on those toes. It's not like they'll be able to hit me. But yeah, I mean, even this to me would be able to attack like the same enemy over and over again. So it could be multiple different ones. I wouldn't make it so that it has to be different. It's more of I like that idea of like give them advantage on the attacks, and for every one that they hit, they get an additional attack. Until up to a limit, like, I don't know, up to 6 times. That's your proficiency bonus. And so you might have a turn where you just drop like 6 attacks in one go, and that's not too wild because that's what the fighter gets. I mean, if they go all out
action surge.
with their action surges, and
they get 8.
Yeah,
at level 20.
Yeah,
4 attacks. Actually, they get 8.
Yeah, so if you made it 6, and you give advantage, so that's where it's better or different than the fighter. And you also obviously have Hunter's Mark, so that adds additional damage to it and whatever. It would feel kind of in line, but it's not as broken as it sounds, I guess, when you compare it to the fighter having 4 attacks every single turn.
This would be a complicated one. I don't know if it's really in line with 5e's design philosophy, but be able to mimic the ability of something that has recently fought.
Interesting.
You would, of course, have to put limits on it. And that's where I don't know a good way to go about that. How to limit that without it being really complicated.
What I think of is something like the first thing I come to is the Artificer's Potions, like the abilities that they have, not the actual mechanics behind the Artificer's Potions, but that idea of being able to choose a specific attribute and take it off of a list of 3 or 4 attributes. So it wouldn't be everything that you have fought and anything that you can choose from, but at the very least, if you're like, hey, in this situation, I need to breathe underwater. Well, here you go. Here's an ability to let you breathe underwater. And I don't know the flavor behind it yet, but
that's spells at that point.
Is,
I mean, what I'm thinking. I was thinking it fits really well from flavor because like they're the experts at hunting and tracking and killing things, and at 20th level they're so good at it, and their magic and internal magic has become so strong that when they are fighting something, they hone in on what it's doing and how it's doing it so well they can now recreate it for a time. That's kind of my thought. There's taking like the favored foe, favorite enemy, where you like kind of learn a little bit more about them, like to an extreme. We are literally learning their tactics.
I like that, but I think you're spot on. And this game I don't know how we could possibly get that in there. There's just too much variety. And like I liked where you were going, Jared, with the artificer list. You almost create a new table of.
You could do it per monster type.
Yeah.
Per monster type, where you have like if you fight a fiend, then you can pull this fiend aspect. So it's not going to be specific to the monster, but it is going to feel like it is specific to that monster type at least. Mm-hmm. But otherwise, yeah, that's pretty messy to be like, oh, I'm going to pull regeneration, but this thing has 50 regeneration per turn. That's probably a little much for a ranger. Let's go with 1/10 that up to your level divided by 6.
Yeah, or maybe just that table, and it's just like kind of famous monster abilities, just as like regeneration, a dragon's breath, things like that. Obviously all toned down. And on a long rest, after a long rest, you could say you spent that time meditating on one, and for the adventuring day, you have this new ability, and you can switch it out on a long rest.
Yeah, anything of that nature.
For 20th, it would need to be pretty powerful, but
right, and I don't even think that needs to be 20th. If I'm being honest, I'd probably drop that in at like 14th and then make it at 20th. It advances everything. Everything gets stronger. Okay. Maybe you get more options. I don't know exactly, but that seems to me like a really cool idea that I'd like to see integrated into the class a little bit earlier. Mm-hmm. Where that's more of just like, that's how a late level ranger feels, 14th and up. It's like they're able to literally adapt themselves. And I like the way you put it too, like their internal magic, because they are so at this point entwined with nature and the things that they fight, and just they have a understanding of this beyond what anybody else does, because they're the ranger. They're the ones who can do this. And yeah, I like that a lot.
Yeah. Or instead of copying famous monster abilities, being counters to famous monster abilities. That sort of thing.
Yeah, like something where you say, if we're talking like a counter to a dragon, it's like you're resistant to, I just say elemental, I guess there, which is kind of broad, but that's something in its own right.
We're just resistant to what it does.
Yeah.
It's like,
I'd say
after attacking successfully, you get this. I mean, you could even give them like the cleric ability of turn undead when you're fighting undead.
Yeah, that could be kind of like, reflaving the ranger just in general. And this might even go back to level 1 stuff that's happening. Subclasses could stay the same, and the core is about their true adaptability. No, then you're stepping on Bard's toes and they start saying jack of all trades stuff, and like that's the Bard shtick.
But it's more of the jack of all trades against monsters. Bards are just the general jack of all trades. Rangers are the ready for anything that you throw at me if it's got teeth and claws.
Right.
Or if it's an ooze, I guess, because you chose slimes as yours, because you just make horrible decisions.
It's a Jublex campaign.
Yeah.
That would get old really fast.
There's not that many oozes.
Another slime!
Ooh!
Yesterday you fought 2 green slimes. Today I thought I'd change it up with 3 green slimes.
And the next day, 2 green slimes and a black slime.
Oh, man.
And none of them have any tactical awareness or anything. You fight them in a slimy room.
Why is the room slimy?
Because it's full of slimes.
Oh.
Yeah, in terms of like less drastic changes, I do really think optional class features did a good job for the most part of fixing what we were really thought were problems, with the exception of favorite foe. So then, as you talked about, swapping that out with an actual true built-in Hunter's Mark, giving it some invocation style choices to change it up, and then maybe give them a couple of different spells because they would no longer, like, honestly, if you take Hunter's Mark out of the Ranger spell list, it's like significantly weakened.
Good. You're right. And that's easy to pull from. I think you just look at the Druid not the Druid subclass, the Druid class, and grab a couple of spells that make sense for them. But I think, yeah, like an easy, I won't say it's a super easy homebrew fix, but a easier fix that isn't a total overhaul or even like a huge list of invocations like I was mentioning is Hunter's class for free. Hunter's Mark? Did I say Hunter's class? I don't know what I'm saying anymore. Hunter's Mark for free, and then each subclass gets its own variation of it. Just whatever you want to make that. I mean, Drake Wardens is, I don't know, your Hunter's Mark does fire damage and one additional little thing.
Yeah. That's cool. Kind of like Bardic Inspiration. All bards get Bardic Inspiration free and does its base thing. This is what it does. And then every subclass interacts with it in a different way.
Right.
Or Wild Shape for Druids. That's really perfect. And it fits super well.
Yeah.
I like that idea a lot. That fits so well with 5e's design.
And that actually seems like a good place to start with the damage type. And I think that one could just be like for free. If you want to, you can do this elemental type. So Swarmkeeper gets poison and Horizon Walker gets force. And, you know, like some of them going to be better than others, whatever. But you can still choose not to do it if you don't want to. Like, make it optional, because otherwise you're going to have the person who's poison and you're like, oh, why did I choose that? Or fire. That sucks. I don't want that.
Right.
But I'm trying to think of, like, what are some other neat variations that you could do to it on, like, a subclass by subclass basis that you'd want to get it or give at 3rd level.
So this would be changing up the base Monster Slayer bit, where we were talking about the 3rd level thing, where it's an action to learn vulnerabilities and all of that not being that great, tied into their Hunter's Mark. So Rangers get the base Hunter's Mark. Monster Slayer says when you put the Hunter's Mark on, you get a kind of a readout of info on them, and it could still just be resistances, immunities, and vulnerabilities. But now it's a free thing with Hunter's Mark, and then you could pick the damage type of your Hunter's Mark at that point in time.
Ooh, and with how infrequent vulnerabilities comes up, that's one that sounds strong but is really going to avoid resistances more than anything.
Right.
And it's not even avoiding resistances outright. It's like, let's say for example, you're fighting something and it's resistant to non-magical bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage. Your attack, your rapier, is still that type of damage. It's just adding the Hunter's Mark damage as fire now, so that it gets around it.
Exactly.
Ooh, I love that. Oh, that's great.
Yeah, that's cool. The Hunter, naturally they would need 3 choices.
Oh, yeah.
Like in line, you know, to be tagged in there. So like if you pick, like I said, if you pick Hordebreaker, you still get what Hordebreaker is, and then you could also Hunter's Mark, you know, up to your Wisdom modifier in things.
There you
go. Something like that. Or Proficiency
that
bonus
one
might be more balanced. But
yeah, I was kind of struggling with that. Like, Hunter's Mark is nice. You can still only attack 1 or 2 creatures per turn, and it's just you who's really doing it. So it doesn't truly matter how many things you have Hunter's Marked. So I think that would be okay, having it either up to Wisdom or Proficiency, however you want to handle it.
It saves your bonus action of having to switch it, and then with the Hordebreaker Hunter subclass feature, it allows you to attack multiple things.
Right, and it actually
and then you do get the occasional AoE. Well, not AoE spells don't trigger.
Correct. It is attacks.
Right.
But that ridiculous capstone I came up with.
Yeah. Okay. Those might not play nice together.
Right.
Or they play really nice together.
Yeah. Nothing's coming to mind about like what a Colossus Slayer specific Hunter's Mark would be. That's not
already Colossus Slayer.
Yeah, because Colossus Slayer is so good. Extra D8 if you attack someone when that's not a max health.
Yeah, and I mean you could probably do like for Giant Killer that's not Colossus Slayer, but I hate that the names are so similar. Giant Killer, Colossus Slayer. They're the same thing. Big death.
Right.
Something about being able to knock a creature prone is what comes to mind for me, because bigger they are, the harder they fall type deal.
Sure.
You know, it's workshopping. Beastmaster, though, to switch, could have your companion able to utilize your hunter's mark.
Okay. Oh, they can't?
No.
I thought they did for some reason.
No.
I thought the new one did.
Nope.
Okay. Yeah.
That's
a kind of an obvious one. Yeah. Horizon Walker, you could, there needs to be a limit on it, but teleport to the target who's on your hunter's mark.
I would just have it when you use your hunter's mark. And I don't think hunter's mark should just be, I think it should be maybe tied to proficiency bonus. I'm fine with that. It shouldn't be like Slayer's Prey where it's no concentration, do it as often as you want, and you get all these beautiful benefits with it. Maybe make it so that you, and this is getting probably too into the weeds, but maybe hunter's mark itself is less limited than this additional ability, or like the subclass itself has limits on it, because that one I agree is kind of ripe for the taking of, when you cast hunter's mark, you teleport to the enemy. Great. But if you can do that every single time and there's no limit on hunter's mark, that's a little absurd.
Right.
I'm really trying to think of one for Drake Warden beyond just it does fire damage. But I guess it'd be same thing with Beastmaster, where your Drake also gets hunter's mark.
Benefits of hunter's mark, yeah. Gloomstalker, this might be too powerful.
Anything for Gloomstalker is going to be too powerful.
Within 5 feet around it is darkness.
Oh my gosh.
It shouldn't be magical darkness.
Yes.
Like that's too much. Not the darkness spell. It's just maybe like the 5 foot square or the space the creature takes up is now in darkness. But I don't know, maybe like a once per long rest you could do this.
I'm actually okay with that. I don't think that's as bad as it sounds. I mean, well, I guess it does kind of give you, if they have dark vision, then they can't see you then.
Yeah. Exactly.
So that's a little tough, isn't it?
I don't know, that might balance out. So it's like the Gloomstalker's kind of somewhat balanced around things that are frequently using dark vision to see you. When they can't, then you're invisible to them. Now, this makes Gloomstalker more useful outside of like the Underdark. And so like you shroud something in darkness and then it doesn't have dark vision and it can't see and it's blind, and that's great for everybody. Or it does have dark vision and you are invisible to it. But the rest of your party can't see it anymore.
Right.
So it's kind of like a trade-off. That might be okay.
It could, yeah. It needs, hey, none of this has been play tested. We're literally spitting it out into the void. So all good ideas here.
Yeah.
For Fey Wanderer, I was trying to think of something that would be around charming them, but I don't know what
Charm
would work.
Sucks.
Yeah,
so
that's what I was going to say, is that charm itself is not great. Maybe you could frighten. It's kind of the opposite side, but Fey is also on kind of both sides there. So when you cast it, they can become frightened of you. Yeah.
I say that, or a random table similar to
no, that's better for Drake Warden. Sorry.
No, that's fine.
That's better for Drake Warden because it's a dragon. And that was something we complained about when talking about Drake Warden, is that they didn't have any like fear capabilities, I don't think. Sorry, did you have one for Fey Wanderer or a variation?
Yeah. Some sort of chaos magic thing, similar to like a wild magic surge table. Like here's this, you roll a d6 and here's a bunch of random zany but overall positive effects.
Yeah.
I love all this, but this class is like now 20 pages long.
What's that, Ranger?
Yeah.
Well, no, these would be added to the subclasses.
Are just, I know. But there's just so much there. These subclasses it's great.
Like I said, I mean, Bardic Inspiration does it. Wild Shape does it. Like it's already exists. Paladins and clerics with Channel Divinity do it. This is actually not really that unique of a concept.
No, it's not. It's just we have added a lot of extensive stuff. A wild magic surge table to your hunter's mark.
I mean, of 6 options
for the Fey Wanderer for one subclass.
Go hard.
Yeah, every time you cast Hunter's Mark, roll on the Wild Magic Surge table.
Oh boy.
Every time you move Hunter's Mark, you have to roll it too.
Yeah.
Let the madness flow.
That would be fun.
No, don't encourage that. That's not fun. That's a horrible idea.
No, it would be fun. It's not balanced, but it would be fun.
Okay, that's fine. So this is like my big thing. I honestly would love to see, I just want to see Hunter's Mark become part of the core of Ranger. It just feels like it opens up so many doors because this is what we came up with in, I don't know, at this point, like, 6 hours? How long have we been talking?
It's a long one.
Yeah. You can't tell me that this hasn't crossed the table of Wizards of the Coast. So I'm crossing my fingers that this is the direction they go, because Hunter's Mark has become so ubiquitous with the Ranger that it just seems unfair to pull away from it. Just lean into it and say, yes, this is part of the core Ranger, just like Eldritch Blast is part of the core Warlock. And if you're doing something that isn't Eldritch Blast and Warlock, you're kind of going against the grain. They've given some options with Hexblade, but
right.
It feels right.
Right.
The funny thing is, though, it's not built into the Warlock class. Like, Hex and Eldritch Blast are built in the most informal sense. But it doesn't suck because the class doesn't suck.
Yeah.
Whereas, this is the only reason we're noticing this so much with Ranger, is it sucks. And I think you're totally right. And flavoring this would just go so far to make this a much more fun time. And that's why WotC doesn't do this. They see these cool options roll across their desk. And they're like, I bet someone would have a lot of fun with this. We can't be having fun at tables.
It's Jeremy Crawford going, is it a cleric? Oh, no, turn that down. Shut that down. I don't like that idea.
I think this is the first time I heard the WOTC Wizards of the Coast acronym pronounced.
WotC?
WotC, yeah.
WotC.
That is new.
An initialism. Or maybe it's the other way around.
No, this makes it an acronym. Otherwise,
yes,
it's an initialism.
Yeah, an initial. Yeah.
You thought we were just about Dungeons and Dragons pedantry. No.
No. All right, another thing to consider here. Do you think it would be worth divorcing the core Ranger from the nature and leave that to certain subclasses?
I mean, my opinion's no, but it feels like more of an opinion than a rational thought. Because once you start doing that, then it, to me, feels like you could start getting into the whole, a fighter could do this as well. I like the nature aspect because I feel like it makes them feel more unique, and it should be, in my eyes, leaned into, not pulled away from, but I could be argued against.
Yeah, I just feel like Monster Slayer, Drake Warden, and a bit of Gloomstalker just don't fit that anyways. Like, Gloomstalker absolutely.
I think it needs to be brought up that divorcing the nature part, what it mostly looks like is just like chopping their spell list into tiny, tiny pieces and throwing them in the air.
Yeah, that's true. All their spells are nature spells for the most part.
This is going to sound maybe like it means absolutely nothing, but I guess the way that I would look at those ones is worrying less about nature, which to me invokes pictures of plants and animals and whatever, and thinking of things being more natural. And that's like, again, I feel like I'm saying nothing here, but like I have like a vision in my head where like saying something is nature, to me that makes you think of, oh, we're going to the forest and we're going to talk to plants and we're going to do all of this. Where if something is natural, it's more of like, like the Witchers where they are crafting potions and it's kind of more gritty and it's like I'm taking the land and I'm making it do what I want. And that's what I think of when I think of Gloomstalkers, when I think of Monster Slayer, or what they could be.
Okay. I get that.
I just wish I had better words to say that. One day I'll get there. We've only been doing this 3+ years.
Right.
Okay. So this has been really long. This is a long episode. Yeah. Do we have anything else that we want to wrap it up? Any issues with the Ranger that still need addressed, or are we ready to
I think we were pretty thorough on the issues. I think we could put this one to rest. As we said, this is planned on being a whole series. The other ones will probably be more positive. This is supposed to be what works, what doesn't, and we clearly feel most of it doesn't work.
Are we going to go through all the classes?
Oh, I thought that's what we talked about. That
sounds fun.
One of
I'm
our
down.
Series, yeah. Class
5-minute paladin episode. Yeah, this is dope.
Yeah,
there's D8s all the time.
Right.
Yeah.
Next.
Yeah. I mean, wizard as well might be hard, but that's fine. I'm good with good classes being good.
Yeah.
Those might be more subclass ones.
Yeah, I see this less about it's a true retrospective. We went from the beginning of what the Ranger was, what it's supposed to be. If they nailed it, pulled it through, does that fix the issues we talked about? Does it still stick to what it is? I mean, you could do that for every class.
I hope so, because
No
we've already
problem.
committed to
Yeah.
a series.
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't just have to be negativity what we don't like. 'Cause, oh, this works really well because of this, and this might actually be too much. And
Oh,
that sort
man.
of things.
I'm excited for the Warlock one, then. That'll be a fun time.
In-depth discussion of every invocation.
And the invocations that I could imagine myself wanting. The 6-hour Warlock episode.
What if they allows you to have more invocations? That's
Here's my
just...
fix for Warlock. Just everything. Take every number you see and add a 0.
What I find never needs a fix, though, is using the code MM10 to get 10% off my dice at Metallic Dice Games. It works every single time without issue. So if you are a dice purveyor and the type of person who likes buying not just metal dice, but resin dice or any dice, or hey, they even have a misfit die program where you can just get the ones that are like kind of odd sets, and you can save 10% by using the code MM10, and you can help out the show a little bit and get money off. I mean, that's what else do you need? That's the pitch. And as usual, thank you to our patrons. Luca L, Brian H, Craig A, Bob F, Ed G, Adam A, Star Shinobi, Sentinel D20, Isaac M, Vincent M, Joe P, and Jeff W. If you want to support the show, you can head on over to monstersmulticlass.com/support and see all of our lovely, not sponsors, not collaborators. Give me the word. Affiliates. There we go. All of our affiliates, as well as our patron, where you can get usually early access to episodes. Like 99% of the time. Maybe not that much, but like 90%. 9 out of 10 times early access to episodes.
But not so frequently. We could list it as a tier perk.
Thanks, patrons.
Yeah.
Freeze frame. End it. Please end the episode.
How long do you think I'll sit here like that one?
Hours, maybe. Days.
Thanks for listening. Are we done?